Outrocast. I'm going to say, is it good evening for you? Here, it's good afternoon.
It's 6 o'clock in the evening, so it's
So it's
it's
not that time of year where it's just dark at 6
no
p.m. It's that
no
light.
no 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 no. We're not that far up north. I would say it's beer o'clock.
Well, a beer o'clock. Well, I was asking about the light stuff because I mean, when you have dark in your band name and you're
True.
the band that everybody knows, I'm sure that people make small talk about the weather and the climate a little more.
Yeah, and the common thing that people say is like, oh yeah, is that why the music is so dark up in the Nordics, and in Sweden and Norway and Denmark and Finland? And yes, it's true. Actually, we have nothing better to do in the wintertime than write songs.
Well, you go into that theory that I have that the
Okay.
darker the music, the funnier, nicer, warmer, and more relaxed the musician is when they're not playing the music.
Maybe. I mean, yeah, maybe that's partly true. I'd like to think that you know screaming and getting a lot of anger and frustration out of your system and into your music makes for a more um, balanced individual, maybe.
But then it's Barry Manilow who's possibly yelling at the band.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I mean, it has to be. I mean, it makes perfect sense, doesn't it?
well, hey, on a brighter note, you have a new record coming out in a couple of weeks, End Time
Yes,
Signals. When did
yes.
you actually finish this album number 13?
Oh, what was it like 4 months ago or something like that? We finished the mix and the master. And we've been working on cover artwork and videos and all those things. So it's still pretty fresh actually. Normally things are done way in advance, but this was kind of like, oh, let's get it done, and we worked a little bit over um, the past our schedule and
Right.
deadlines, but no, but it's cool. Like and it's still fresh, but I'm really excited that it's coming out. And our deadline was so that we could release it at a festival here in Germany at Summer Breeze this summer. So that's the kind of plan. So we just made sure everything worked around that, you know. And but it's happening. It's real.
That was actually going to be my follow-up question,
All
which
right.
is that when I got the announcement for the album, it said the band will be playing festivals across Europe and the US this summer.
Yeah.
Meaning, were you timing finishing and releasing the album for already booked tour dates? In other words,
Uh,
were all these promoters kind of having to keep the secret of, oh, there's an album coming?
yeah, kind of. I don't know if it's about keeping secrets yet. Everybody knew that we were, working on an album, but we just hadn't, made it official just when it came out. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's how we work, of course. Like we already booked and planned tours as we were writing.
Hmm?
So yeah, everything needs to be planned way in advance these days, that's for sure. um so yes, we actually we play on the same day that the album comes out at midnight. So it's kind of cool. The album drops at midnight, and then we start playing like all these new songs. And then a few weeks later we get to the States, and we do a tour together with Amorphis, and then it's a European tour after that. So yeah, it's a lot of things happening right
Yeah.
now, and it's been cool. We played this past weekend in like Hellfest and both the festivals, and we were able to kind of premiere some of the new songs and singles already. It feels great, like just to kind of start this next touring cycle and this next album cycle already.
Does the set list look the same for the US, a headlining gig or a longer set in the US as elsewhere? I said because I find a lot of bands, the hits were not the same in the US, meaning the US is a little stupider. They took a little longer to catch on to the band. So, meaning like the hits start with the first and second album in a lot of countries, and then the US gets on the third or the fourth album.
I don't know if that's true in our case, but yeah, the set kind of difference a little bit in between countries. I mean, in South America, we play older stuff because people caught on to our first and second album already back in the day
Mhm.
there. And it's the same kind of in maybe in Italy and south of Spain. but mostly like Europe and US are kind of similar.
Hmm.
I know that we are gonna try to incorporate some older stuff, some more kind of less obvious songs, just because it's fun and we can do it this time around. So I'm really looking forward to that. Um, yeah, and of course, I mean it's difficult. This is our 13th album. It's
Yeah.
really hard to put together a set list that everybody is happy with and that feels good, you know, without losing some songs that people are upset we are not playing. And so we'll see. But we're gonna try to change it up as much as possible, just to keep it interesting and to keep us on our toes, so to speak.
So when you started the band, how many albums did you envision it going? Obviously not 13.
No, no, no. But two maybe. I remember, like, I mean, when I was 15, I was at 15 or something like that. I remember maybe it was, probably wasn't, but I remember when the second Death album came out, and I was like, a death metal album releasing, a death metal band releasing two albums. That's awesome. Maybe they're onto something, you know. So no, never thought that at all, and it feels weird. It really does, but also the most natural thing in the world as well, because this is all we've been doing for most of my life, not just my adult life, but my life in general. So it's and it's, I mean, we still enjoy it, and it's still one of
Right.
these things that is such a challenge and a with the greatest reward, basically. Like you work on something for more than a year, and you give it your all, and you go through these highs and lows and doubts and fears and triumphs and all that stuff, and it can be um really really difficult, like mentally, to just go through and try to come up with new stuff, you know, after 12 albums, you know.
Yep.
And you there's so much self-doubt and stuff that comes into it, but then you you know, you trust the process, you trust your good bandmates, and you end up making something that we can all be proud of, and it's the greatest thing in the world when that happens, you know. So yeah, if as long as it feels this good to have a new album coming out and to play songs and knowing that we can pull it off, then there will be a couple more.
Fingers crossed. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
at this point in time, your label, your publicist, all of them are calling you iconic Swedish melodic death metal pioneers. Do you like that term?
Not really comfortable with that. No, I mean, sure, there weren't that many bands that sounded like us when we started, but
Right.
there weren't that many bands, period, you know, like that. So no, it feels weird. Of course, I'm incredibly proud of what we have done, and the fact that it works and that it resonated with people all over the world, basically, and that people are taking in, like, picking up instruments because of what we have done, in the same way that we did, of course, when we were kids and we loved, you know, the American death metal bands from Florida and the
Yep.
German thrash bands and all those things that made us want to be part of this music thing, you know.
Makes sense. Well, talking about Sweden as a whole, if you don't mind me lumping you in with other successful bands from your home country,
Mm,
I think the average American big music fan at first goes, "Yeah, I like Swedish music. I like ABBA." And
yeah,
then once they dig a little further, they realize all the boy band and teen pop hits of the late 90s, early 2000s
yep.
came out of Sweden.
It was
And
written here, yeah,
and then you go, okay, yeah, Robin is also from there. But then you
yeah,
have the punk rock stuff like the Hives. Then you
yeah,
have the more metal stuff like you. So where I'm going with that is you kind of realize that Sweden, which of course Kiss was recently purchased by a Swedish company, you realize that Sweden is probably the number one or number two music creation country in the world. And back in the day, you used to have to move to New York, Los Angeles, or London to kind of make it because there
yeah.
wasn't really an industry elsewhere. When did you
No.
kind of realize that you were blessed to be Swedish?
I don't know if I ever felt that, but I know what you mean. I mean, yeah, it's definitely like a rich kind of culture of music in Sweden, no doubt. Coming all the way back to kind of the folk music, that of course also, you know, that inspired ABBA. You know, the melodies, the kind of this melancholy, uh, melodies that ABBA uses that comes from like the folk music, and I think that goes with a lot of metal as well.
Hmm.
Um, and it's that I think that melancholy I think is what is kind of the most important aspect of Scandinavian music that resonates with other places than just Scandinavia. But I don't know, like I remember it was kind of cool when we started that we could actually you could rent instruments for free. You could get a little kind of like a sponsored deal where the government would pay for rehearsal room. I could pay my parents for borrowing their garage that they couldn't use for any of their cars. That kind of thing, and it was a cool thing to and there were shows being put on by the state as well, where all bands could play all different genres. So it was kind of very much encouraged to be a band. Maybe it was to get people off the streets and stop doing drugs, and and there were kind of these youth centers where you could hang out and just borrow instruments and be in a rehearsal room basically. And there was always one an older guy who would teach you a few riffs, or teach you how to play drums, that kind of thing.
So a community and a government that appreciated the arts.
Yeah. And that really helped. And a lot of the people that I meet and a lot of my friends, they have very similar stories of like how they started and how it was kind of easy to get going. But of course, I think it's just it's part of it, and it's not like it's super encouraged or anything like that, but I don't have anything really to compare it to either. So I just take this for granted and I go like, yeah, it's pretty nice here,
Yeah, it's nice. Well,
Yeah.
Two quick questions, and then I let you go. And the first one is, when you speak to American harder musicians of a certain age,
Yeah.
the three bands that usually got them into their career path and just not listening to the radio for their new music, it's usually Van Halen, Kiss, Metallica.
Yeah.
Which were the bands for you? Because these were not necessarily the hits where you grew up in 1980.
I mean, they were too, but like 80s, I think like the first kind of contact I had with heavy metal was Twisted Sister, Wasp, and Mötley Crüe, I think, or maybe Kiss. But that was on on TV. They played the cool Twisted Sister video, we're not gonna take it and I want to rock, that kind of stuff, and it blew our minds as kids. It was like, this is the coolest thing in the world, and then we found something heavier, and then I found Creator and Sodom and Destruction and Morbid Angel and Obituary, and yeah, the rest just started to make sense, but it was that kind of I think there was. It's actually funny, like in the 80s, when I don't know if you remember, but Twisted Sister, when they were with the PRC, and it was 84, and all the parent mothers were like, oh, holy shit, that this is the devil's music. And that, of course, that happened in Sweden as well. And there were debates on evening television, and they took up pictures from Wasp, where Blackie Lawless was carrying raw meat and blood and naked girls and that kind of stuff, and the purpose of that was to kind of tone that down so that kids wouldn't get subjected to it, and that parents could kind of stop their kids from doing it. Of course, it had absolutely opposite effect, and everybody was kind of like, cool. Yeah, this heavy metal thing is the coolest thing in the world, I want to be a part of it, so I think that actually inspired a lot of heavy metal musicians to this day. Just the way that kind of moral panic happened, and of course you want to upset your parents when you're that age, and just part of it.
And the last question for you, what's the main passion or hobby? Because when I think of your band, I just think of the great music that's been going for a long time. What's the main hobby or passion outside of all that, when you don't have the deadline of an album and you don't have the tour looming?
I like to, whenever I have time and kind of late at night when there are no more emails and no more text messages and stuff like that, I just dive into video gaming and get lost for a couple of hours just to relax and not think about anything else. So that's probably, and it's always been kind of like one of those kind of escapist things, you know, to kind of get away from everything and for a while just enjoy it. And also I love it as an art form, and you know, the combination with music and narrative and graphics and storytelling and everything like that. I love it. I wish I could play more, but I don't have time. But that's probably my favorite hobby when it comes to just like when I'm home and everything is quiet, everybody's asleep, and I can just disappear somewhere.
Same here, man. Well, thank you again for the decades of great art. Congrats on End Time Signals, and looking forward to those US dates in the near future.
Hell yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Outrocast.